Greetings, my brothers and sisters. Welcome to the Sudds-R-Us podcast, hosted by Irene and Ben
Greetings.
Sudderth Jr. We just give God the praise, the honor, and the glory for this opportunity to come before you in our second season on episode 6 as we continue with the concepts of the circle of love, as we focus on God, marriage, family, and life. So we're going to continue in our theme, which is from whence we've come, and we're going to do some Black History moments. I'm going to continue with Buffalo Soldiers Part 2. And first, I want to give a shout out to our brother. I want to thank him for tuning in. Will Walker, or Will's Take on Sports. And I tell you, we listen to his podcast, and that brothers do a serious wrap-up on sports. He'll cover every sport out there, and we just enjoy listening to him. He was talking about some Black legends on Black History Month. He talked about Sam Jones as he played with the Boston Celtics, won 8 championships in a row with Bill Russell and K.C. Jones. And then he talked about this brother at Oklahoma who was playing basketball in the NCAA, and got me excited about March Madness. I don't watch a lot of basketball, collegiate basketball. I haven't been anyway, especially with the pandemic, and they canceled it last year. But after listening to Will, I'm excited about March Madness coming up. And we also heard about the legend from the Negro League. He was talking about Ray Brown from the Homestead Braves, and we really enjoyed that as well. So thank you for tuning in.
Thank you,
my brother. We appreciate it, and we look forward to listening to you again.
Yes, and continuing with our shout outs, we definitely want to give BS3 Sports a shout out. Our son, Ben Sudderth III, who got us all started on this BS3 radio platform, where along with other podcasters, you can hear from each of us about sports, inspiration, music, life, comedy, society, culture, and relationships. So again, you can find us all on BS3 Radio. We're also on every platform that you can find a podcast, which could be on Facebook. You can find us on Instagram, Twitter, iHeartRadio, Amazon Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. So check us out, BS3 Radio. There's a variety of shows that you could choose from and partake. And we thank you once again for listening in. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So we're going to continue to celebrate Black History Month. I know it's the beginning of March, but since they give us the shortest month in the calendar year, we're going to go and enjoy the first part of March. And so this gives me an opportunity to share with you 2 more expeditions of the Buffalo Soldier, in part, the Buffalo Soldiers Regiment. And I couldn't leave these 2 out. I mean, these expeditions were great because basically what they do, they really affect us as a family in some form, way, or fashion, even 100 years later, when we look at what they actually went through as a regiment, as far as that 10th Cavalry in the Buffalo Soldiers. So now we're going to look at the Philippine-American War, which was from 1899 to 1903, and the 1916 Mexican Expedition, or as they call it, the Pancho Villa Expedition, now known officially in the United States as the Mexican Expedition. But originally it was referred to as the Punitive Expedition U.S. Army. Let's start with the Mexican Expedition. Well, that was an unsuccessful military operation conducted by the U.S. military and the U.S. Army against the paramilitary forces of Mexican Revolution. Now, the revolutionary was Francisco Pancho Villa from March 14th, 1916 to February 7th, 1917. During the Mexican Revolution, which was from 1910 to 1920. Now, he was a Mexican revolutionary general and one of the most prominent figures in the Mexican Revolution. There were many movies made about him. Even one movie, he betrayed himself. So if you want to Google it, Pancho Villa, he was a bad brother. Now, Villa subsequently led a raid against a small U.S.-Mexican border town, resulting in the Battle of Columbus on March 1916, and retreated to escape U.S. retaliation. The United States government sent U.S. Army General John J. Pershing on an expedition to capture Villa. But Villa continued to evade his attackers with guerrilla tactics during the unsuccessful 9-month excursion into Mexican sovereign history, or Mexican sovereign territory. Now, the mission ended when the United States entered into World War I, and the General Pershing was recalled to other duties. But it was unsuccessful because they never captured Pancho Villa, similar to how they're now trying to capture Mexican drug cartel leaders, but it's hard to capture them even today. See, they're very elusive with their escape routes and defensive techniques, like building elaborate, sophisticated tunnels. Now, Villa himself led the assault only to be driven back into Mexican territory by elements of the 13th Cavalry Regiment and the Buffalo Soldiers' 10th Cavalry Regiment, stationed at that town. The attack angered Americans and President Woodrow Wilson, and he ordered a punitive expedition into which the U.S. Army invaded Mexico and defeated General Villa's troops, but failed to capture him. So secondly, there was a strong opposition to war in the Philippines among the African Americans. Now, many black soldiers established a rapport with the brown-skinned natives on the island, especially the women, if I must say so myself. And unusually, a large number of black troops deserted during the campaign, some of whom joined the Filipino rebels, of whom the most famous was the celebrated David Fagan. Now, a native of Tampa, Florida, Fagan served in the 24th Regiment of the U.S. Army. But on November the 17th, 1899, he defected to the Filipino Army. He became a successful guerrilla leader, and his capture became an obsession to the U.S. military and the American public, like Pancho Villa. So his defection was likely the result of the differential treatment of white Americans occupational of that particular territory and the forces that the white Americans put on the African Americans. The soldiers were subject to a lot of different racism and discrimination. So because of that, they even discriminated, the white American forces also discriminated derogatory treatment and views of the Filipino occupational resistance, who were frequently referred to as niggers and gungas. So after 2 black deserters were captured and the execution was ordered by President Theodore Roosevelt, he announced he would stop executing captured deserters. His story and Pancho Villa's story is similar. They were guerrilla leaders and they had never been captured. Like I mentioned last week about the movie, The 24th Regiment, which was I Am a Man insurrection, who rose up and massacred some Houston, Texas police officers, some local residents. Also, unknowingly and by mistake, they even killed some military officers. Right. Because of the racism and the discrimination and the soldiers being treated by their own military officers as lower class citizens, even being beaten by their own military officers. So because of what they were being subjected to, at that moment in time, one of the black sergeants criticized Fagan in the movie, saying that he defected them and went to the Filipinos because he was tired. He was tired of being mistreated. He was tired of being discriminated against. He was tired of being looked down as a lower class citizen. He was tired of being even treated like an animal. So he defected. And because he defected, that allowed the black soldiers to consider leaving the actual U.S. military. So, you know, it's interesting when I look at this two particular episodes. It's interesting that they allow the black soldiers to fight Indians or Native American wars, Mexican wars, and even Filipino wars. But we couldn't go to fight in France in World War I. Now, why was that? Why would they want our expertise and our military ability and intelligence to fight people of color? It shows how they didn't consider us as their equal. Now, the Mexican people, if we want to look at history, let me just take you back. The Mexican people were actually descendants of the Aztecs warriors who migrated south down from Arctic North America. The second migration came about 12,000 BCE. That's way before Christ. When the glaciers of the northern North American melted, it populated what is now Canada and the United States. The third migration came about several thousand years later and brought the ancestors of the Athabascan people of eastern Alaska and northwestern Canada. About 1000 CE, some tribes of these Athabascans started a migration south beyond the east side of the Rocky Mountains, which ended in the settlement of the ancestors of the Apache and the Navajo tribes in southwestern United States of America and the northwestern part of Mexico. Finally, about 6000 BCE, the ancestors of the Inuit Eskimos migrated into Arctic North America. Now, why did I share all that with you? Well, I shared all that with you just because I want to emphasize that this country was discovered long before Columbus got here.
Before.
So our Native American ancestors, the ingenuous people of America, is also our history. How is it our history? Well, for instance, in our family, my great-great-grandmother was half white and half Native American. And I know Irene has some Native American family or blood in her family as well.
Exactly.
So we were professionals, highly trained enough to kill people of color, which were our ancestors, but not white people, because they felt we were inferior to them. So they didn't want us to be recognized and honored by being successful in the European war, by fighting against their ancestors. They hated us because we are God's original children, and they didn't want us to be recognized as equals. So now when I look back on this, I know we did hindsight 2020 in our last season, but now when I look back on this, we understand why the Filipino community was so loving and respectful to African Americans when we was in the Bay Area. See, we didn't know any Filipinos or Mexicans in Hickory, North Carolina.
Growing up.
When we grew up, you had black, which was hyphen North Native American, because some of us was mixed or had some Native American blood in us, but you had black / Native American, white, and then a few Chinese. So when we moved to San Francisco, the Oakland Bay Area, in 1982, which is considered Americans' melting pot, we experienced a culture shock. Because there were every nationality and ethnic group you could imagine living in the Bay Area in Northern California. I mean, you had Indians, you had people from Africa, people from Hawaii, people from Saudi Arabia, people from Japan, people from China. I mean, you had Chinatown in San Francisco, you had Chinatown in Oakland. You had Little Tijuana on East 14. Now it's called International Boulevard. So it was a culture shock for us.
It was.
And when we visited, we even visited Camp Creek, a Native American casino, for a couple of times in California. We just wanted to support our brothers and sisters. So we went to Camp Creek, Cash Creek, I'm sorry, Cash Creek. So that's why we believe our children migrated to the South. specifically Atlanta, to attend HBCUs, Morehouse and Spelman, and now living in Atlanta and Dallas, Texas, because of the large African-American business and professionals in this community, as well as the highly educated Black culture in this community. They were genetically, because it was in their DNA from where we came from, even though they were born and raised in Northern California, in the Bay Area. Genetically, they were drawn back to the South.
To the South, that's right.
It was a culture shock for them to see all these African Americans, prominent, prestigious, highly successful, coming from the Bay Area because of the melting pot. You had a few here and there, but not like it is here in the Atlanta metropolitan area. So even though we experienced, me and my wife, even though we experienced the Black community professionals in the segregated South in the 60s and in the 50s, and we experienced the Black business professionals and the medical professionals and the educational professionals, but we were still getting away from the racism and discrimination in the South and the small town of Hickory, North Carolina. We wanted to experience something new. So we moved out west. As the old saying goes, go west, young man. And I was also, we're going to be transparent, I was also running for my call in the ministry as I was running to the love of my life. Even though I made some mistakes and some bad decisions in my youth, I still had a management position offered at the Holiday Inn where I was working my senior year at John C. Smith University. But I left that because my heart was in California. I didn't leave my heart in San Francisco. My heart moved to California, and she was working in San Francisco. So I wouldn't let her get away. So I followed her, and I was willing to pursue her to the other end of the world if necessary. That's one thing about the helpmeet or helpmate that God designs for us. Even though he designs and creates us a partner, he will not do the hard work that it takes to keep the relationship together. We have to be willing to incorporate those 5 C's that we talked about, to cultivate and nurture the relationship. Christ first, communication, compassion, consideration, compromise, caring. We have to incorporate those in our relationship daily.
That's right.
In order for it to last. But now that I look back on our decision, I see it was devastating, to my father, as his only child moved across the country, as he was dying with cancer, that I didn't know about at the time. But I found out when we were already in California. He didn't want the burden to be put on us because of his illness. He fought death for 2 years, and while going through chemo and radiation treatments, he fought through in order to see his only child graduate from college and also to come to California to hold his first grandchild, which was a boy named after him. That's one of the reasons we relocated back to the South and do so much for our children and for our grandchildren as our mothers did for us and are still doing, because we're trying to restore the family legacy that our fathers missed out on, and to make up for those 35 years that we were away from our family. Because Irene's father passed away when Ben III was young as well. So we don't want to be considered someone that's inconsiderate or not compassionate enough about our family. Now, don't get me wrong now. We enjoyed growing up, or maturing, I could say, in the Bay Area. We enjoyed maturing as Christian leaders in the Bay Area and raising our children and being a part of the ministry in the Bay Area and enjoying the warriors in the Bay Area. So don't get me wrong. Sometimes we enjoyed the company of our mothers and our brothers, I should say, in the Bay Area. But it was one of the reasons we came back. And even though, when I look back over it, even though the majority of the residents in Oakland were Black back then, but we never lived in Oakland. We ever lived in Berkeley, or we lived in Emeryville, or El Cerrito / Richmond, because half of our house was in Richmond. And Richmond had a high Black population, or Vallejo. And that's where we was introduced to a large Filipino community in Vallejo.
That's right.
And they would carry themselves. They would act like black and walk like black. And our daughters attended Jesse Bethel High School, which was named after a black man.
That's right.
But the band was majority Filipino.
And love themselves some black people.
Yeah, even though the football team was majority black, and our middle daughter, Camellia, played on the volleyball team, and that was majority black. But the band and the drill team, or I say the drum line was majority Filipino, and they would win just about every competition. We would follow them to different areas, and they would go on the competitions. And because they had that rhythm and that love of R&B and soul and funk, they loved the music like black people. And because when you look at it, the introduction to our culture goes all the way back to the Buffalo Soldier. And they're integrating themselves with the islanders and the natives because their defection from discrimination and their defection from racism and even within the U.S. military allow them to integrate into that particular community. And just like the Native Americans, when our ancestors ran away for freedom and when they wanted to be considered as equals and as human beings, and when they escaped slavery, a lot of them integrated into the Native American community.
That's right.
And so because of that, we have that blood running through our veins. So as I close on this segment, I'm done with Buffalo Soldier, I'm done with Black history. In 1918, the 10th Cavalry fought at the Battle of Ambos Nogales during the First World War, where they assisted in forcing the surrender of the federal Mexican and Mexican militant forces. Buffalo soldiers fought in the last engagement of the Indian Wars, the small battle of Bear Valley in the southern Arizona, which occurred in 1918 between U.S. cavalry and the Yoga tribes. African Americans, they fought to conquer the West and secure peace and independence for European Americans, but we're still getting considered as second-class citizens. Didn't get any credit or have equal rights in the United States of America, especially in the South. We helped them steal the land from Native Americans and Mexicans, but were still considered second-class citizens. Our history in this country runs deep to the core of its inception and its racism. This country was built on the blood, sweat, and tears of African Americans.
Right.
So we deserve to be recognized as the backbone. We deserve reparations, equivalents to 40 acres and a mule. We don't want the mule. My wife always said, you keep the mule. But equivalent to 40 acres and a mule that Abraham Lincoln promised us, and President Andrew Jackson revoked after Lincoln's assassination. So what we have to do, we have to educate our children, our brothers and sisters, about these facts. So they can have a sense of pride and feel that they are worthy to be respected as American and be a part of the American dream and respect each other back and stop the black on black crime.
That's right.
So when the white politician and the white supremacists suggest that we can go back to where we came from, if we don't like the status quo, well, we can tell them that they can go back to where they came from. And they try to reverse the civil rights movement and try to reverse voting rights. We can stand convicted with pride and say our ancestors discovered, built this country, and died for this country.
That's right.
So they can go back to where they came from. If they don't like, we're demanding equality. They brought us over here to have us exploited with free labor, and they raped our women, and then you try to use us as free military soldiers because God had another plan. Because most of us have Native American blood running through our veins. So we're more entitled to this country than they are.
That's right.
That's why we're flying our Black History flag, Black History Month flag with pride in our home, on our home, in a predominantly white neighborhood in the month of March also. Let me give you this scripture, then I'm going to turn it over. Galatians 6:7-9 says, "Be not deceived, God is not mocked. For whatsoever man soweth, that shall he also reap.
That's right.
For if he soweth to his flesh, he shall reap corruption. But if he soweth to the Spirit, shall of the Spirit he reap life everlasting. And let us not be weary in well-doing, because in due season we shall reap if we faint not.
If we faint not. That's right. Wow. So that was rich. Our Black History moments will continue, as we've said, each and every month. We're going to pause out right now to welcome our son, Ben Sudderth III. Thank you so much for tuning in. And yes, you're right. C.J. Anderson did go to Vallejo.
That's right.
Or Jesse Bethel High School,
That's
I should
right.
say, in
That's
Vallejo,
right.
California.
That's right.
And thank you, Brian D. Williams. Thank you again for tuning in. So, as we mentioned earlier, we're in episode number 8, and we're on the heels of Black History Month. And we're now in the month of March, which has been designated as Women's History Month. And today we are going to celebrate all the Black beautiful queens, all shades, hues, colors, and moods. That's right. I did say moods. That comes with the territory. Moods and attitudes. February may have ended, but our history does not. No apologies given and none accepted. We are who we are, and we are still celebrating our heritage, our culture, each and every day, honoring Black excellence.
That's right.
So for the queens, they may not be on here now, but I hope and pray that they will be encouraged by this episode that is especially for you.
Yes.
Let me just encourage you right where you are right now, and know that you are loved, know that you are celebrated, you are cherished, and you are valued. We need to know that our worth is far more than what the society says that we are.
Right.
We have come from a lineage and a heritage of beautiful, strong, and unstoppable Black women.
That's right.
And every year, every generation goes beyond that and expounds upon what has already been established by our awesome ancestors. And as we continue to build on that foundation of excellence, we don't stop there. We just keep going. And we're cut from a cloth of distinction, greatness, and accomplishment.
That's right.
So why do you think the bright and white species, why do you think they want to look so much like us? Because we were made by our great God. Right. There's a scripture in Psalms 139:14 that reads, "Thank you for making me so wonderfully complex. Your workmanship is marvelous. How well I know it." So thank God for your big, pretty lips.
All right.
And your skin tone. And let's not forget our voluptuous lips and our curvy hips, our big booty, and yes, our thick thighs. We are beautiful. And as women, we sometimes have to remind ourselves of those things. There's so much that goes on in our personal lives, some that we share and some that we hold on to and ponder and think about for hours and for days on end. But that's what makes us strong, and that's what makes us resilient. So we are often taken for granted and we're often misunderstood. But once we're known and get to be known, we are jewels and gems deep down inside. And we as women, I must say, and I'm 61 and I've been through some things and I've witnessed some things and I've experienced some things. And we sometimes can be quite petty. We can be shallow. We can be cliquish. But I hope and pray that we can at some point soon unite even more for the one purpose, and that is to show love. Not to compare, not to talk about, not to tear down, but to build up our sisters and to show love.
There you go.
Now, self-love. That is one thing that, is so pronounced now, is self-love. And I'm for it. I'm here for it. There's nothing wrong with it. I totally believe and I implement that myself. But I've got one question.
All right.
As you're loving and caring for yourself, Are you being healed in the process?
Wow.
Are you being healed in the process? A lot of times we're loving on ourselves, but we're masking what's deep down inside.
Wow. Yeah.
What's deep down inside. And it is a love triangle.
Right.
You love yourself and you love others, and there has to be some healing in the process.
That's it.
So yes, love on yourselves, please, please, but be healed in the process. So you can be emotionally whole. I think that is so important. If we're still hurting on the inside, but we've got to project this image on the outside. And heart central, that is taking care of the core, your heart.
Right.
Guard it, protect it, shield it, and free it of the unnecessary. So you can truly love and respect not just yourself, but others. A woman's heart is often fragile. I hope the men are listening. A woman's heart is often fragile. It's sometimes hardened because of the pain that she has experienced.
Wow.
And yet her heart carries so much love.
Yes.
And again, for the men that are listening, winning a woman's heart doesn't make you a man, but learning to treasure that heart after it's won is what makes you a man. You have to continue to treasure her in your heart. And if you captured a woman's heart, it is the most precious possession that a man could ever possess.
I know that's right.
So, my sisters, though no one may notice your tears, your aching heart, your sadness, and your pain, God knows.
Yes.
That's the anchor that I lean on, because a lot of times my husband may not understand, and I can't assume or ask him to be all that I need him to be. He can't be my everything. He is not meant to be that. So you all have to, rely on God, who is a powerful source in your life. And he can do all things. He does all things well. And so keep casting your cares on him and your worries and your concerns, for he truly cares for you.
Oh, yeah. Yes, he does.
Now, since this pandemic, I must say that, our clothes may be getting a little tight, and we can, stand to lose some weight, but we can also stand to lose some other weight. And that is not just the pounds, but the things that weigh us down, the things, the people that weigh us down and mean us no good, that isn't bringing any value to our life, that's only draining us emotionally and keeping us on this roller coaster of wild and sporadic and spastic and unpredictable changes that tug on our heart. So you have to free yourself of some of that excess weight so that you can soar above the things of this world that try to hold us down, because there are great things that we have to do as women. And just to remind you, you're in control of what you allow to enter your spirit and your heart and your mind. And here's one thing that I read the other day that I wanted to bring out, that I thought was so profound. This could be for single, for unmarried, for married, for those with children, or for those that don't have children yet. Listen to this: heal before having children, so your children don't have to heal from having you as a parent.
Wow.
Is that powerful or what? Healing is important. It's important. I'm not ashamed to say that I went and sat on the couch and talked about a lot of the things in my past that were really weighing me down, that I had never addressed. We talked about that in a few episodes, how we could suppress things and never seek the healing that we need. So it's never too late to heal.
That's right.
Both you and your children will be glad you did what was necessary for everybody to be whole. For everybody to be whole. Another thing that we have to do, women, is to forgive. It doesn't make you weak, it sets you free.
That's right.
Forgiveness does not excuse their behavior, but it certainly prevents their behavior from destroying your heart.
All right.
I am a witness, and those that hurt you may never apologize, but you go ahead and forgive them. Release them and let it go. And let them go in the process. It's okay. It's okay. I love what my pastor said, and it's just like you may have been hurt, and you've forgiven them, and it's okay that you release them. You don't have to ever have another relationship, conversation, confrontation with them again, and that's okay. And that's okay. They were in your life for that season and that season only.
All right.
But lastly, be healed from your past pains, your disappointments, your failures, your hang-ups, and don't keep nursing them and rehearsing them.
Wow.
You don't have to keep bringing them up, just like that flower, you keep bringing it up and watering it and putting it back. You don't have to keep doing that. You don't have to keep doing that. So your spiritual wellness is important, my sister.
Yeah.
If you don't have a daily regimen or a daily routine that you have implemented, I encourage you to do that. Get a routine and be consistent.
Yeah.
That's the word of the year. Be consistent. And read the word. Read the word of God. A devotional. Say a prayer. Pay attention to your soul and your spirit. That jumpstarts your day. Your inner being. And keep being gorgeous and great.
That's right.
But make sure that your spirit woman is intact. And you're only human. Take care of yourself so you can be there for others. I remember the song Superwoman. Y'all remember that song by Karen White? Released in the great year of 1988. She talked about early in the morning, I put breakfast on your table and make sure that your coffee has a sugar and cream. That sister girl was going through a lot to be a superwoman. And yeah, most of us were raised to be superwomen, but how is that working for us now? We're really tired. Yeah. We've tried to shuffle a lot, and we still do. I try to tell my daughters now, sometimes you just have to slow down. Yeah. It's okay. You're not going to get everything done when you're trying to work and serve and, cook and clean and lead and write, and sing and manage finances and shift gears and be there for the kids. And, it's amazing how much women can do, but a lot of times we do need to slow down.
That's right.
It's hard, believe me, it is hard, but we can do it. Yeah. Pace ourselves, and the race that we call life, learn to embrace a moment of quietude. Yes, that is a word. Close your eyes, rest. Even though you don't go to sleep, we go 100 miles a minute sometimes, women, trying to handle our business. And I'm not saying you shouldn't. And part of that is good. However, at the speed of sound, how effective and efficient are we being?
Right.
So I speak in hindsight now, and I'm speaking wisdom to all of you. Slow down.
All right.
It's worth it. Believe me, later on, your body will feel it, and your body will make you sit down.
Right.
But you want to be effective, and you want to maintain a pace that your offspring and those who will receive an inheritance will be benefited and not burdened.
Wow.
They need to be benefited and not burdened. Okay, so own up. There's a lot of times, ladies, that we cause issues in our lives, and then we want to blame it on God or blame it on the devil. We got to own up, and we got to fess up.
That's right.
There are some things that we created in our lives, some issues, some concerns, some self-inflicted wounds that we're still putting Neosporin on.
All right.
That we are avoiding the mistakes and the things that we have created in our lives. It's okay. We've messed up. We've owned up to it, and we can move on from it.
Right.
So I just want to remind us that it's okay to have that me mentality, but don't forget about the loved ones that are dependent on you.
Right.
Don't forget about those that are your responsibility, that cannot afford to be neglected. Appreciate what you have, appreciate your family. Even so, in this pandemic, I think God has gotten us to a place where we can learn to appreciate our loved ones, get closer to your family, your husband, your children, and just love on them.
Yeah.
And now, women, for our elderly women and our elderly people that are in our lives.
Right.
You know,
Right.
they are in need of our love too. A lot of times we forget about them. You know, I have an 86-year-old mother. Even though I can't go see her, you know, you can still call. You know, some of them are pretty fancy with technology. You can Zoom with them. You know, you can send them a just because gift. It doesn't mean, you know, it's not Mother's Day, it's not their birthday, just because.
Right.
And they are so appreciative of the little things that you do. And then lastly, or maybe not lastly, because I do have a little bit more, but on the elderly, you could just show that you care. And maybe not the elderly, but show another woman once a day. We're in Black women, we're in Women's History Month. I'm sorry, but we can reference our Black women.
That's right. That's right.
And show love. We can affirm and encourage and uplift a sister just because. Cash app a sister.
All right. All right.
You know, have coffee on me. Send an e-card to her favorite spot. It doesn't have to be a great amount. It's always the thought. And brighten someone else's day. When God speaks to me, there are oftentimes I get a response back, and this woman that I may have blessed, you know, she was going through a lot. So it's okay, you know, and as your cup is overflowed, you can be a blessing to other people.
That's right. That's right.
And then if there are any elderly women that are watching, you know, remember that you can be a blessing to some of the younger women in your life. Share wisdom. A lot of times they may not want to hear it, but those nuggets that you can drop will speak truth.
Yes.
And we can speak it in love and know that they will appreciate it. Maybe not now, but later on in life, they will appreciate it.
Right.
But I want to say something to the brothers that are watching. You may be married to a strong woman, and that's good news because she brings strength to the table. But work together, not against one another. You don't have to feel threatened by a strong woman. A lot of us have been raised by strong Black women, and it was impounded in us. It's like we didn't have a choice. And to be honest, we appreciate that because we were not raised to be weak.
Right.
But we can be submissive. We can learn to be followers of good leadership in our household and learn to cherish your wife. That was a part of the vows that we shared as husband and wife. And I thank God that my husband really stands up to those vows and realizes that he does have joined with a strong Black woman. But I do respect my husband to the utmost. And then for the men, watch out for other women. Watch out for other women. You're married to one. You're not to entertain all the others. And stay clear of the other women because they can, think that they can move in and take over or dominate your heart when you're married to one and one only. Protect your marriage and your family. And please don't take your wife or your girlfriend for granted.
That's right. That's right.
Don't take her for granted. She's strong, but she's not weak and she's not dumb. She was raised and has a mind of her own. So work hard at your marriage so your marriage doesn't work you.
All right.
That means give you a headache, a heartache, make you want to step out. That means you got to put in more energy. You got to work hard at it and make your marriage last forever.
All right.
Make it last forever. It's worth it. So women, happy Women's History Month. We're going to try to celebrate Black History Month every month, every time that we're on live. And also, women, we love you. We appreciate you. We cherish you. And hold your head up. You are beautiful in God's sight.
All right. All right. Great. Women, I tell you, I have the love of my life, a strong Black woman that I'm grateful that she is a part of me, my helpmate. We also celebrated a strong Black woman's life today, my Claire, Clarissa, Sudderth Douglas. She went home to be with the Lord a couple weeks ago, and we celebrated her life on today. So I just wanted to give a shout out to her and the family. We thank you for letting us be a part of the memorial service. And we have some birthdays this month. My wife does a beautiful mantle. Maybe we can take a picture and share it with you guys. But we're celebrating the birthdays this month of my father, Benjamin Sudderth Sr., and also my cousin, who's like a brother to me because I'm the only child. And his mother is the last living sibling on my mother's side, and my father's last living sibling, Clarissa Douglas, just passed. So we want to celebrate them and celebrate all the women. I know we're going to probably be talking about women in our family as we go on this month and uplift them. But we also want to celebrate Derwin Furrow, who's my cousin, also our brother, who was born in this month as we celebrate the month of March.
Right.
Let's close out with this scripture.
I was saying Stacy.
Oh, Stacy. Okay, I'm sorry. Stacy, our daughter, who passed away.
Right.
We want to celebrate her as well. And she's in the little duck urn behind us, and you see Mama Odessa behind us and Mama Sudderth behind us. We want to close out with Romans 12, 17 through 19. And it says, recompense to no man evil for evil.
Right.
Provide things honest in the sight of all men. If it be possible, as much as lieth in you, live peaceably with all men. Dearly beloved, avenge not yourselves, but rather give place unto wrath, for it is written, vengeance is mine, for I will repay, saith the Lord. So we're going to lean on that scripture. We're going to trust God through it all.
That's right.
As we continue to celebrate him as well as women this month. And we enjoyed you today, and we pray that you have a good rest of your weekend.
Yes.
And we'll see you next week. God bless you.
Enjoy. Thank you for tuning in.
Love you.